minutes early because I know Vicki has some really great content for you, and we're all excited, right? How excited are we? Come on, you said lunch. Let's go. So, Vicki Mayo is the CEO of TouchPoints Solutions. She is, I'm sure, has lots of content for you on what she's doing, but TouchPoints Solutions, her whole crew's in the back. I'm sure
Go TouchPoint team. Woo!
They probably have some to demo. If you're feeling stressed, you want to hold these things because you will not be feeling stressed after that. So she's a serial entrepreneur. She's a mom. She's a wife. She's all over the place on CES, signing all kinds of agreements, winning all kinds of awards. She's on fire. So I'm just going to pass the mic and let her get started, and I hope you enjoy. Vicki.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me here today. Just wanted to get a little temperature of who's in the room today. How many of you guys are entrepreneurs? Please raise your hand. Awesome. You guys, give yourselves a round of applause. You guys, it's incredible just to take that step and to be an entrepreneur. Now, I want to know how many of you are here supporting entrepreneurs? Yes, you guys, even bigger round of applause, because behind every great entrepreneur is a really amazing team, and I want to make sure that we give credit to those folks. So today, my talk has actually had multiple titles. At one point, it said Presentation Hacks from a Serial Entrepreneur, and then it was called Life Hacks, and then it was called Productivity Hacks. So I'm not going to talk about presentation, but I'm definitely going to talk about productivity and life hacks. So we'll get started. I want to share with you a little bit about my background, and I thought I would do it as a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 format. So I am a serial entrepreneur, so I'm going to start with number 5. I've had 5 companies. TouchPoint Solution is my 5th company, and people ask me, oh my gosh, 5 companies, how did you know that you wanted to do this? And I share this story because it's comical, but maybe some of you can identify with it. When I was 6 years old, my mom had bought me my very first bottle of perfume. It was called Tea Rose perfume, and I was so excited about it. Well, I came home, I showed it to my brother, and in true brother-like format, he grabbed my bottle of perfume and sprayed it around the entire house, and it was completely empty. And I was so upset. He looked at me, and I started crying. He goes, "Don't worry, sis," and he's put his arm around me. "You'll figure something out." And it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I go, "Darn right I will." I said, you're old enough. You go to the kitchen, fill a pot with water. My little brother, you, outside. I want you to pull rose petals off Mom's award-winning roses, okay? So in the kitchen, we're stirring up and making our brand new Tea Rose perfume. And after I filled my bottle and made myself happy, I realized, gee, there's still half a pot left, okay? My little sister, I took her little baby food jars, put my Tea Rose perfume in those jars, and I went around the neighborhood hawking them for $2 a bottle. I knew at 6 years old, I was destined to be an entrepreneur. So from there, I had a few other little entrepreneurial debuts. I had a bracelet making business when I was in 3rd grade until I got busted by the principal. I decided to sell donuts. I would beg my mom to buy a dozen donuts, saying I was going to share them with my friends, and then I would proceed to sell them to people before they walked into the school building. But when I was 14, I started my first official business. Essentially, it ended up being one of the forerunners to Expedia. So this was back, so I was 14, I'm 34 now, so I'm aging myself. It was about 1996, 97, and I would put an ad in the Arizona Republic every Sunday, and people would call me, and I lived in Sedona, and leave me voicemails. After school, I'd check these voicemails, and they would say, "I'm coming to Sedona on this date, book my trip." And I would book everything from your dinner reservations to your car rental to your hot air balloon ride to your hotel. And this business lasted 3 years until I sold it and ended up going off to college. So I had a great college career. When I got done with college, I started a finance company. I moved into hospitality management. About 6 years ago, I started Valor Global with my husband, which is a leading IT managed call center company. We grew it to over 80 million. And then I worked for the governor. And then I started TouchPoint Solution. So the 5 is for 5 companies. Move on to 4 kids. Yeah, I really do have 4 children. And the way I became a mom was not in the most conventional manner. Going backwards in my story, I shared that I was in college and I had heard about 2 boys that had been abandoned by their parents. So There was a 13 and a 14-year-old teenage boy, and they were living alone in an apartment by themselves. Their parents had been picked up by immigration, deported the parents, and left the children. And my heart went out to them. And I knew that if I had been left alone in an apartment, I would want someone to come and take care of me. And so the day that I graduated from college, I went to this apartment, I picked up these two boys, and I became an overnight mom. And my lesson for all of you entrepreneurs is naivete is your greatest asset. Because I did not know how hard it was going to be to raise two teenage boys. But I became an overnight mom. So I have this, had a beautiful 13 and 14-year-old kid today. They're both 25 and 26. They're doing amazing. They are both entrepreneurs themselves. So it definitely runs in the family. And then I had two biological children. So I had a boy, I have a 9-year-old, another boy, and I had a 7-year-old daughter. And I guess that brings me to 3 engagements. So I have been engaged 3 times. I like to think it's not because I was difficult. It was just third time's a charm. So my first engagement was actually arranged. So if you haven't noticed, I am of Indian descent. And my parents had told me from a very young age, we're going to arrange your marriage. So when I was 18 years old, they did exactly that. And let me tell you what, this guy was quite the find, if I have to say, ladies. He was a jeweler, right? Do you get any better than that? Right? I got engaged, beautiful, 2.5-carat diamond, you know, like a fairy tale wedding. The way I got engaged, I sailed around the island of St. Thomas on my engagement party. But it wasn't a fairy tale because it wasn't right. And sometimes you have to trust your gut. And I just knew it wasn't right. So I broke off the engagement when I was 19 years old. And I think looking back on it, that was one of the reasons I was able to adopt my boys, because I wasn't bound by being married to somebody. So I was able to make the right decision for my life. So I had these 2 teenage boys. I got engaged once more in between there, not even worth mentioning. Yeah, not a jeweler. He was not a jeweler. And I had these 2 teenage boys, right? And I didn't know what to do with teenage boys because, you know, teenage boys, they're going to get in trouble. I was so sure, you know, they were going to do drugs and have sex. Like, that was it. So every day I'd just be like, God, please just don't let them do anything bad. And I came up with this harebrained plan. I thought, if I get my kids so tired, they don't have time to get in trouble, right? It's a good plan for those of you with teenagers. So I put them in every sport I can find. And one of their sports was field hockey. And guess what? The coach was pretty darn good looking. So as I sidled up trying to get some more playtime for my kids, I ended up dating the coach, which brings me down to my one husband. Now, you probably want to know, right? The kids did not get extra playing time. It actually probably worked against them. So I skipped over the 2, but the 2 is $2 million in sales. So I believe that if you work really hard, you can be successful. And last year, we launched TouchPoints Solution in December of 2016. We did $250,000 in sales our first month out the door, and last year we brought in our 2. We did over $2 million in sales. Thank you. So that's just a little bit of background. I hope sets the tone as to why I have earned the nickname Serial Entrepreneur. Among another nickname I got today, Firecracker. Can you believe someone called me a firecracker today? So I want to share with you about productivity and life hacks. So I'm gonna go over what I consider to be my personal toolbox. When you're trying to achieve something or accomplish something, you can't do it unless you set goals. And I do a big exercise every year. Actually, my husband and I have been doing it now for the past 6 years. And we actually sit down and we look at all these categories in our life, from business to personal to bettering ourselves, into health goals, and to our children. And we do this big goal setting exercise where we list all the buckets and we say, okay, over the course of the next year, what do I want to accomplish in this area? And I bring it up because this is really a life hack or a productivity hack. Because if you don't know what you want, you're going to go through life just going through every day. But you have to set goals for yourself. And they don't have to be, I'm going to earn X millions of dollars, or I'm going to achieve this monetary thing. It can be as simple as, you know what, I want to volunteer once a month, for 3 hours. I want to read a book every month. But I encourage you to go through this exercise of goal setting. And that's really my first hack for you. And once you set a goal, and I'm going to give you guys a fictitious example of losing weight, because I think it's a goal that a lot of us set every year. it's important to make a scorecard because you can't manage what you don't measure. I'm going to repeat it again because it's important to say it twice. You can't manage what you don't measure. So if something's really important to you, then you need to be measuring it on a regular basis to know, am I winning or losing this battle? Am I getting closer to my goal or am I getting further away? So the reason I've got a little stoplight up here is because I believe in this really easy concept called stoplight scorecards. So if you think about a goal, let's say I'm trying to lose weight, right? There's a goal, a weight that is for you a red, a not good. And then there's a goal that's a good goal, which is a green. And somewhere in between is probably a yellow. So if you were to measure your weight, let's say every week or every month, and to record it, you could say, I am red, yellow, or green. So now within a moment's notice, you could look at like an Excel spreadsheet and say, I am trending the right way or I'm trending the wrong way. It's a really powerful thing. When you put in your calendar every Sunday morning, I'm going to go weigh myself and I'm going to document that on my scorecard. Now you're managing because you're able to measure something and you're saying, I made the right decisions this week or I didn't. And that sense of accountability is a very powerful thing. And it can be done for things that are subjective, right? How's my relationship with my boyfriend or my significant other? How's my relationship with my parents? Or am I spending enough quality time with my children? You can put those things on a scorecard and you can measure them. And I know that sounds maybe a little callous to some people, like, oh, I spend time with my kids every day. Why would I need to measure that? But I ask you, and I urge you, because I did this self-reflection, how much time are you really spending with your kids that's uninterrupted quality time? Or your spouse? How often are you sitting across from each other at dinner, but you're holding the phone in your hand, right? Put that down as a goal if that's what's important to you. Go back to that goal setting. What is your goal? What's important to you? And then find a way to scorecard and to measure that. And that can be business and personal both. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is a top 5. Has anybody ever heard of this guy, Franklin Covey? Have you ever heard of him? Right, okay. Have you read he's got a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And it's a long book, and it has this one big thing, which is the real big thing I take away from it. It's called a WIG. What's your wildly important goal? And what's that wildly important goal for every week? And you should take that goal, and then you should make like a top 5 for the week, and you should put those things down and hold yourself accountable. Now, my team is here. They'll tell you later. You can go ask them if this really works or not. But I run a team here, and I've run big companies in the past, and I don't want to be the manager that micromanages. But I also don't want to empower you so much that you're running around working on things that aren't important. So the concept of the top 5 is how I'm able to run my team. I say, okay, every Monday before noon, I want you to write down the top 5 things that you're going to work on. And these should be bite-sized chunks. So don't tell me that you're going to, write a 72-page paper, right? You're going to get 10 pages done of a 72-page paper. Take those big chunks, those big pieces that you're trying to get done and break them into 5 goals for the week. And I want you to put number 1, most important, as your number 1 goal. And put them on this OneNote document. Every week on Monday, I'm going to come around and I'm going to go read the OneNote and I'm going to make comments on it. Because in order for our organization to move forward and be lithe and nimble, and for me to empower you but not micromanage you, we've got to be in alignment. So I'm going to read these 5 goals, and if they fit in and they're in alignment, then you keep doing them. But if these things that are like outliers that aren't really important, I'm going to notate on there and say, hey, this is important, but not right now. Let's hit this one in 3 weeks. Can you do this instead? This is more important. So now I'm not having to go micromanage and ask you every single day, what did you do? Are you doing what I needed you to do? I'm setting expectations and goals, and we're very clearly communicating about it as a top 5. It's a really great concept. It works in business, and it also works with your children. Yeah. So, surprise, my kids have scorecards. I know, it's my dirty little secret. But they also do a top 5, right? On every Sunday, okay, Veer, what is the most important thing that you have to do this week? What tests do you have? What do you need to study for? These are the 5 most important things. And I'm going to write them down on the little whiteboard in your room, and then we're going to check in on them every night. Okay, this concept works, and you're teaching your children at a young age how to be empowered and how to focus on tasks without me micromanaging him. Because every night when he goes to put his points up, I brushed my teeth, I changed my clothes, I made my bed. These are the 5 most important things I'm supposed to do this week. And here's a little hint for you. We're a neuroscience company, and I'm going to give you some neuroscience hacks in a minute. But every time you give yourself a little check mark or sticker, or you hit green, it's a little hit of dopamine. And that means you're going to keep wanting to do it. So the top 5, it's a really great concept, and I wanted to share it with you as this is a great life hack and a productivity hack. And then the last thing in my toolbox is a huddle. So can you imagine, how many of you guys like football? Raise your hands. Okay, some of you. All right, just even if you don't like it, just for a minute, bear with me. What would happen, you think, if in between a play, they never stopped to huddle and they just, like, the quarterback just, like, threw the ball and no one knew what play was happening? How do you think the game would go?
Chaos.
Yeah, kind of bad, right? Probably not a winning. Probably not like a Eagles kind of a game, right? So it's really important to have a huddle. Now, when you're talking about a startup and you're an entrepreneur, you move really, really fast, right? At TouchPoint, we call it TouchPoint time. It's like a running joke because something will happen in the morning and by afternoon it may be different and changing because we're growing so quickly. Well, it would be absolute chaos if we didn't stop to huddle. And we huddle regularly. We huddle daily, if not more than once a day. So the way I run a huddle is 5 parts. And this is a concept that Vern Hardish made. He wrote a book called Scaling Up, and he shares how to do this. But essentially you do a 5-point huddle. How many of you guys have been in these staff meetings where they just go on and all you hear about is like where the broom goes and, clean out the fridge, right? Those are housekeeping items. And that's unfortunately most of the time what staff meetings are. But when you do a huddle, they should be no more than 15 to 20 minutes max. The first part of your meeting should be rapid fire good news. Because when you're moving this quickly and you're a startup, you always got to keep everybody jazzed up, right? What's my good news? Rapid fire, shout it out. Make it like a minute, 2 minutes long. And then you go into your metrics. If you're running a company and you're not looking at KPIs or OKRs or some kind of a scorecard or metrics, I ask you, how can you manage what you're not measuring? So you've got to take, a good 5 to 10 minutes to look quickly at your scorecard and your metrics and say, are we trending the right way or are we not? And if we're not trending the right way, let's talk about it. And then the third part of your meeting should be roadblocks. And I really consider this the meat and the potatoes. So why is it that their team members can't do what they need to do? And bonus tip for you, if you're a manager, your whole week should be dedicated to breaking the roadblocks for the people that report to you. Mm-hmm. So often you'll find out, like, why didn't you'll get upset, like, employee, why didn't this get done? Well, because I never got that answer back from you. Well, why did you not tell me about it till now? Well, because I only have a one-on-one with you every 2 weeks or every month. So all of this progress was hampered. Instead, what about if you had a huddle and you could say, hey, manager, I can't get what I need. I can't move forward. I'm stuck and you're my roadblock. Give me an answer. And then the onus is on them, right? The meat and potatoes of any meeting is really roadblocks. What do you need from your manager or somebody else in your team to be able to get something done? So spend a good time on your roadblocks. And then no more than 10% of your total meeting can be spent for housekeeping. So if it was a 10-minute meeting, you get 1 minute to talk about where the broom goes and the fact you need to clean out the refrigerator. And then you should always end quickly, 30 seconds, with a cheer. Share an inspiration, share a good story, share something so that you leave people on a good note. And that's how you do huddle. And again, my team can probably tell you, we huddle a lot, and they're really fun. They're great huddles, and we get a lot done. And every division in our company huddles. So if you're going to run a meeting, that's a business hack for you. I don't run huddles with my children. I know you're going to ask me. Yes?
Can you remind me of the first one?
Yes, it's good news. Yep, good news. So this was my toolbox. Yes?
The people that you're having meetings with, is it just the leaders or just everyone, or who's in the meeting?
So it depends. I'll give you an example for TouchPoint. So we run a very flat organization, but I do a huddle with our customer experience team every day because they're on the front lines. They're hearing what's going on from our customers. We only do a marketing huddle once a week. So in the marketing huddle would be the marketing manager and everyone from that team. Now I ran huddles and I implemented them. I mentioned I worked, I don't know if I mentioned it. I worked for the governor. I came in with his administration and I was appointed to actually teach these productivity hacks to government agencies. So I started off at child safety and then I moved into economic security, and we have 9,000 employees there. And by the time I left, every single person at this 9,000 person agency would do huddles every single day, and they would tier up. So the people that were at like the food stamp offices would do a huddle early in the morning at like 8 o'clock before they opened the doors, and their information would go up at the regional level, and then all the regional individuals, they would have a huddle, and then it would go up every day. So by 12 o'clock, the highest managers of any division knew what happened from the ground floor up. Now, it's not a novel concept. You guys probably have heard of Ritz-Carlton, like one of the top hotel chains in the world. Ritz-Carlton does this every single day, and they do 7-minute huddles beginning with their bellboy. I actually walked into Trader Joe's. I got there really early one morning, and they were doing a huddle. I was so excited. I mean, they thought I was a dork. I was like, can I listen in on your huddle? So huddles are a concept that's being used. So the government uses them now, and Trader Joe's too. So anybody have any more? I'll have Q&A at the end, I guess. It's like Kate told me to do. So I'll keep going. But this was my toolbox and my life hacks that I want to share with you. Now, I promised I would share you some neuroscience hacks. So TouchPoint Solution is really about better living through neuroscience. And I'm a big believer in data and science and having science help us live our life better. And I love hacks. So I'm going to give you guys 2 hacks. One is altering your stress response, and the other one is improving your sleep habits. So, and this is a plug for TouchPoint. I have to tell you a quick one. But I want you to understand something about how your brain works. Can you guys take a second right now, close your eyes. Okay, I want you to think of something stressful. Just imagine that stressful event, and I want you to notice your body. Are you guys noticing how your stomach might start hurting? Do you notice how your chest is tensing up? Okay, drop your shoulders. Did you guys even notice that you were tensing your shoulders? Okay, open your eyes. Now, that quickly, with just thinking about a stressful event, you guys all felt something in your body, right? That was your fight or flight system engaging, and it engages that rapidly. So throughout the day, I think there's this misconception that if we have food, water, security, we're in this place where we're self-actualized and we should be, we shouldn't get upset about things and we should be at our highest, most productive levels. Okay, that's a myth. I'm sure all of you have, food, water, shelter, security. You have all the basic needs on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But what you don't realize is that despite that, your stress response, which is your fight or flight mechanism or your sympathetic nervous system, was actually hardwired into your brain from millions of years ago. They call it the lizard brain. Because as soon as you feel threatened, you feel something that upsets you, just like when you closed your eyes and thought of a stressful situation, your brain is like a light switch. It flips on your stress mechanism, your sympathetic nervous system, and you feel it in your body first. And that's your body's way of telling you to fight, flight, or freeze. Because that's how you stayed alive for millions of years, and that's how you were able to run from the saber-toothed tiger that was going to kill you 10 million years ago. Now, as our brains and our bodies have evolved, and as humans we've evolved, unfortunately our fight or flight mechanism remained archaic. And it flips on and off all the time throughout the day, hundreds of times a day, when it doesn't need to. And as a result, you have a lot of chronic issues, right? You might have trouble breathing. People have high anxiety. You might have panic attacks. It might even be so subtle because you've come to accept that's just what life is. You just have this level of stress. Research has now shown us that 80% of disease is because of excess stress. It's pretty profound. Well, about a decade ago, neuropsychologist Dr. Amy Sarin actually found out that there was a way to turn the switch off. So you don't have to live in this fight or flight place anymore. You could actually live in the other part of your brain, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. That's your logical, rational brain. That's what people refer to as your executive functions or your prefrontal cortex. All you need to do is just deactivate your fight or flight. Sounds simple, right? She found a way to do it. So she found out that you could use bilateral stimulation. So you've seen maybe people that tap themselves on either side of their body. There's a thing called EFT, but it's not as effective because after a while your brain anticipates the tapping. So it's a way of really balancing your brain out. She discovered this technology. She spent a decade researching it. She actually used it with people overseas to help with the PTSD with the Ebola crisis. And then we're mommy friends, and through a strange course of events and my daughter's night terrors, I partnered with her and I said, oh my God, this thing put my then 4-year-old daughter from the middle of a crazy night terror. I put what would later become TouchPoints in her hands, and she went straight to sleep. And she woke up happy the next day. Like, that's amazing. I don't know if you guys have 4-year-olds that are moody, but I tell you what, something that made her happy, I was like, game on. So much so that I told the governor, listen, I love working for you. I love helping the state, but I have to find a way to bring this to the millions of people that struggle with stress. And I even thought back at my own experience, right? If I had had those touch points to give to my 2 boys that I adopted, or for myself as a mom, can you imagine how much better we would have been able to be? I think that you deserve to be the best version of yourself. And I want to bring this technology to the masses. So we took this blast technology, we embedded it in these wearable devices called the TouchPoints, and we've been selling them now. And that's our business that I was telling you about, where the number 2 came from. So this is a neuroscience hack. Feel free to check out our website, ilovetouchpoint.com, to learn more about it. But I feel like the way to change society is, number 1, to educate them. I don't know how many of you guys even realize your fight or flight response is what was responsible for making you feel stressed. So I feel like today, if you can walk away with the education knowing that that's what it is, that you'll be able to have more compassion in those situations when either someone's yelling at you or you're upset with someone else. It's coming from your fight or flight. Now, the second thing is improving your sleep habits. So there's these really cool orange glasses. I actually have a set in my bag. I don't know how many of you guys have heard about blue light. Anyone heard about blue light? Okay. So when you're trying to go to bed at night, we're busy looking at our cell phone or the TV, or we have the lights on in our bedroom, and it actually stops the melanin production, which puts us to sleep. So if you actually put these orange glasses on, about 2 hours before bed, it'll actually block the blue lights, and you'll be able to start your melanin production, and you actually go to bed better. So I just thought this was a great neuroscience hack. Again, it's one of the things that Dr. Sarin has been researching. They're out on the market. There's lots of different kinds of blue light blockers, but I wanted to share it with you as a neuroscience hack, because I am all about hacks in neuroscience. And if you really want to get a good night's sleep, put your touch points on the sleep setting. We now have a timer in our product. So put it on the sleep setting for 20 minutes and put your glasses on. You will have one good night's sleep. All right, other stuff I want to talk about. So if I'm talking about life hacks or productivity hacks, I got to talk about the big bad B word, and that's balance. So people ask me this question a lot, right? Vicki, you do a lot of things. You got 4 kids, 1 husband, multiple businesses. How do you balance it all? And I really believe that balance is a myth. Because if you're really trying to put your life and fit it into a box, I'm going to work 40 hours, I'm going to spend 40 hours sleeping and 40 hours with my family, and try and box these things up, well, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. Because the fact of the matter is that balance is something that you create, not something that someone else dictates for you. So there may be weeks where you can go and work for 20 hours and go take a vacation with your kids and spend 100 hours with your family, and you eat takeout for the whole week. Okay, and that's your balance for a week. There may be weeks where, listen, you're in the middle of raising a big round of funding and you just released a new product and you end up working 100 hours this week, and but you cook dinner and you have family dinner every night, and that's the only time you spend time with your family for a week. But that's balance, because that's what works for you. So in my mind, I believe that balance is more about what is your goals and what's important to you, and how do you make that fit for you. So if you're trying to fit yourself in these boxes, right? I need to only work this much, I need to spend X number of hours, and you're trying to fit yourself into some type of artificial framing, it's not going to work. So I think that there is a way to achieve balance, but I think the way to achieve balance is to change your definition of balance. And that's my thoughts on balance. So I'm almost done with my talk, so I don't know what time I'm at, but I wanted to share this quote with you because a smart person once said this to me. So you make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. And when I talk about all of these life hacks and setting your goals and what is it that you want out of life and how do you make balance, I ask you to ask yourself, what type of life do I want to have? And what do I want to get out of it? Because that's going to drive and dictate everything that you do every day. And I don't know how often we stop and ask ourselves this, because we get so busy in the whirlwind of these are the things that need to get done that we stop and we don't get that moment to really focus on that. And I always say, if you take a second back and you focus on what kind of life you want to have, everything else falls in place. So here's my personal plug for my most favorite book. I read it when I was 16 years old, and it's when I decided to dedicate my life to helping people. But it's the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. How many of you guys have read that? Okay. I think it's an amazing book, and it's one that I read every year, and I make all my kids read once a year because it's so powerful. So just a quick plug, pick it up, read it, it'll change your life. I mentioned throughout my talk so far. So The Alchemist book, the concept of the huddles and the scorecards comes from Vern Harnish's book, Scaling Up. He's fantastic. If you ever hear him talk in person, please do. I talked about Franklin Covey's book, For Disciplines of Execution. That's where the concept of wildly important goals and the top 5 come from. And then please check out the TouchPoints blog. I actually released a New Year's resolution toolkit, which has an entire exercise on goal setting along with the Excel template so that you can make that red, yellow, green stoplight scorecard that I talked about. So that's actually the end of my talk. I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to come out and chat with you. I'm happy to answer questions. And again, if you guys want to buy TouchPoints, there's a code here, YesPhoenix, for $20 off. And you can visit any of our team members that can answer questions for you. But thank you so much. You had a question, sir?
Yeah. For the glasses and for the touch points, has there been any research on? Because you said glasses is like you said it stops melanin.
It allows you to start the productions.
Oh, so I lost my train of thought.
Oh, we were asking about research. So,
yeah, so has there been any research of like if you stop, like let's say you use the glasses for like a month or two, and then you stop using them, is your brain naturally still going to continue on?
So with the glasses, no, there's not any residual effect because melanin production starts in real time. It's not where it's a learned behavior that, oh, I should start making production right now. So the glasses, no. With TouchPoints, yes. So we actually have a whole host of research. And we actually show, when you think about the TouchPoints, they do actually do 3 things. So number 1, they're going to take away those body sensations. So we've got tons and tons of research. We actually just did a pool of over 1,000 users, and they said we're seeing an over 70% reduction in the body sensation within 30 seconds. They're also seeing an over 70% reduction when they think about the stressful event after 30 seconds of using the TouchPoints. So 1, it takes away the body sensation. 2, it makes the event less stressful. But 3, and here's what's most exciting. Your brain is actually like a giant filing cabinet, and you've got all these files that have, they're marked, all these events that are stressful for you. So whether it's public speaking or a car accident, and the papers in those files are usually negative. That's why when you think about the stressful event, those papers say, make her stomach hurt, make his head hurt, he should be overwhelmed, he might want to start crying, and all of those papers are in there. But when you use the TouchPoints and you think about that stressful event, you're actually very, very rapidly putting new papers in that file. And so your brain's always going to reach for the new papers first. So it's a form of almost like systematic desensitization over these stressful events because you're building new neural pathways in a matter of seconds. That's why this has been hailed as one of the greatest neuroscientific discoveries because we're actually positively affecting things. So pertaining to sleep, my husband was taking Ambien every single night, going to sleep, having a terrible time sleeping. And he used the TouchPoints for 3 months consistently every single day. And then he stopped using them. And he would only use them, 1 day a week, 2 days a week. So he's been off Ambien now for over 2 years. And the only time he needs his TouchPoints for sleep is if he's traveling because of the time differences. And now he uses them. So now he's like, Vicki, I'm done with sleep. Now I'm working with like work pressures. So he still uses his TouchPoints, but he just transferred the use of them to something else. Yes, sir.
A quick question about the stoplight scorecard system.
Yes.
So when you're tracking your progress towards a goal, are you tracking the process in the green, yellow, or red, or the product? And so the example would be, let's say you want to lose 104 pounds over the course of a year.
Mm-hmm.
So each week you should be losing 2 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
If I lose 1 pound in a week, is that a yellow? And if I'm losing 2, is that a green? Or are you tracking something else? Like which thing are you tracking?
So using your example, I would actually measure 2 things. Okay. And I look at every metric as a combination of a lead and a lag measure. So the lag measure is like an outcome measure. And that would be your weight. So for that, I would actually start off saying, my goal is to be 100 pounds. And every week I would say, okay, I'm 140, now I'm 138. And so I would actually record the total weight, not the weight loss. And then I would look for lead indicators. So if my goal is to lose weight, what are all the things I need to do to achieve that goal? And that might be, I need to stop eating gluten. I have to stop eating chocolate. I need to go to the gym 3 times a week. I would list those as additional metrics, and those are the lead ones. Because chances are, if you stop eating chocolate and gluten and go to the gym 3 days a week, you're going to lose weight. But if you realize, I am not going to the gym anymore, but I just stopped eating chocolate and my weight still drops, well, that's your culprit, right? So you can actually do a scientific experiment to find out what it is. In the back, yes, and I'll come to you next.
Thanks for your talk. Some really good stuff there.
you.
When I was at Infusionsoft, we were influenced by Vern Harnish, and so we used the big 3 and a green, yellow, red scorecard. And watching that company grow from less than 100 people in the pre-Series A to over 600 people, it really helps keep the people aligned. So I think it's great content for this audience. My question. So you mentioned that you have a flat organization, you do about 2 million, so guessing you have about 12 to 15 people in employees?
Yes, yes.
And so for you as the CEO, how, can you give us a view into your week?
Mm-hmm.
Because often it can, finding the time to manage, inspire, and lead, and then also being able to get your own work done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're fundraising, but all the other working with investors. So can you give us a view into your week and how you're able to prioritize where you spend your time and how much of that time is spent managing versus, and are you spending the right amount of time managing versus working on your own strategic thinking time?
Yep, definitely. It's a great question. So to answer your question, I'm going to share another principle. It's called why low, die low. So week in the life of versus day in the life of. So my belief is that the closer you are to like front level delivery of services, and I would say this like at the government. So if you were coming in to get food stamps, your work is very memorized, right? Rinse and repeat, right? You come in, you fill this application. The level of standard work, day in the life of, is very routine, right? I have a meeting in the morning, and then I have to see 27 people every hour, right? It's very rote. As you move up in the chain, it's very hard to get standardized as a die low, as a day in the life of. You have to look at a why low. So I actually have a standard work sheet. If you guys email me, I'm happy to share this with you, where I actually say over the course of a week, these are the things that I have to get done. And then I have some things that are set. Like I know by Monday at 12 o'clock, I have to go in and I have to look at everybody's top 5. And that's my primary means of communication for the week. I also know that manufacturing is a big thing because we produce a product. I have a daily huddle at 10 a.m. that I have to attend. Now, so I plot out over the course of the week, what are the things that I have to do? And then I have just like a bucket. These are the things I have to do in a week, but I don't know if I'm gonna do them on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And I spend a lot less time managing, I think, than a lot of people do. I don't know, team, you can probably weigh in on it. But it's because I believe in empowering people and giving clear expectations and guidelines. So then they can work themselves. They don't need a lot of feedback from me. So they have the vehicles to where my management time is very little. I would say management time is maybe 20% of my whole week, because these formats of when they come to the huddles, they come and they go, these are my roadblocks, Vicki, here's what I need you to do. And then I get busy doing those things for them. So I spend about 25% of my week on visionary strategic things, right? New product development, new marketing campaigns, things like that. I probably spend about 20, maybe 25% going to these huddle meetings and then road blocking for people. And then the other 50% is a combination of managing finances, fundraising, just working through like random things that come up. There's literally 25% of your time which you just say like, oh shit, it's like an entrepreneur thing that something comes up. So does that answer your question?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share that sheet with you if it's helpful. Yes.
I have a similar question. How do you wake up in the morning? Is there like a process or kind of a ritual? And do you have kind of a review kind of process at the end of the day, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So I wake up in the morning slowly with 2 cups of coffee. That's the truth. And I actually wear my TouchPoints every morning. So while I drink my coffee, I put my TouchPoints on, and then I make the kids pack their lunches and make the rest of the family breakfast and things like that. So I don't have any real rigor, some secret sauce outside of I start my morning with my TouchPoints, because it makes me calm. If you haven't noticed, I'm a pretty high-strung individual. I have a lot of energy. But having my TouchPoints on in the morning gives me that clarity of mind to say, okay, today, these are the most important things I have to get done. And I always keep my phone with me or a notepad, and I jot down. Like while I have my TouchPoints on, I'll say, oh, I should probably prep for that startup week talk I have this afternoon. You know, those sorts of things will pop up in the morning. And as far as night, so my ritual with night is about 2 hours before I go to bed, I put on my orange glasses, and I actually journal. So for me, I like to be retrospective about my day, and I'm obsessed. My startup friend, Mayo, started a company called Silk and Sonder. I know I keep shopping this notebook around. She should pay me commission for talking about it. But it's this really great notebook where you can actually track habits. It's already like built in. They're beautiful. You even have like coloring pages. It's like the most amazing journal, and it's a subscription where you get one a month. And I actually sit down every night and I journal for the day. Like, this is what happened that was good. Here's what was not good. And it's almost like I offload it by saying, like, this is what I'm concerned about. And then if I'm really having trouble sleeping, I'll use my TouchPoints, but I don't usually have that issue at night. But that's my personal thing. And Dave, I know you had a question.
For your roadblock section of the huddle,
Yes.
that section, like, I could imagine could make a meeting go super long. How do you handle, like, here's my roadblock?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you have short answers that are like, yes, no, or we'll talk about it later, or what's the?
Yeah, so going back to that earlier question that Infusionsoft, I forgot your name. Kathy. So that Kathy shared, right? This is where the managing happens. So we actually have huddle etiquette, and it is that you have to be short and succinct, right? Learn the art of brevity. I'm very big on it. Please don't tell me like how the clock was made, just tell me what time it is. So in the huddle, right, people are going over their roadblocks, and I'm like, what is your ask? And then if they start talking too much, I will say, excuse me, can we take it offline? And if it's something I can quickly answer, like yes, no, maybe, here's the answer, here's the resource you need, I'll give it to them. If not, take it offline. And immediately following huddle, I block 30 minutes to where I can go and talk to those people about those specific things. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
Can you explain again how Dr. Amy Sarin figured out how to deactivate the flight?
Yes. So what Dr. Sarin realized was actually a technology that's been used, the concept has been known for over 30 years, and it's actually the most successful treatment for PTSD, and it's called bilateral stimulation. And so prior to this, people were using it, they were actually looking at flashing lights to basically refile away memories, and that's how they were using it to treat PTSD. And so Dr. Sarin realized people that are blind, you know, they have been using bilateral stimulation on them because they can't see, so they were giving them vibrations. But what she realized was that you can actually use EEG data. So she was putting brain caps on people, where you can, it's almost like doing an fMRI on your brain. And she was saying, gosh, when I'm giving them this intensity or this, these settings, I'm noticing that their brain is changing and the patterns are changing in their brain this way. And we were specifically looking at excess beta waves. So beta is what's responsible for producing cortisol, which makes us feel stressed and gain weight. It's like a double whammy. So she was looking to say, how can I reduce the amount of beta in your brain? And so she was saying, okay, when you're sleeping, this setting works better. When you have a craving, you know, whether it's drugs or chocolate, this setting works better. You know, when you need to focus, like if you have ADHD, this setting works. So that's the research that she was working on, was refining the waveform and the delivery. But if you were to use the TouchPoints, they look like this. So they're devices, they're always come in a set of 2. You wear one on either side of your body, and you'll feel gentle haptic micro vibrations on the right and on the left. But it's really just the intensity, the setting, and the speed at which it happens is what produces that effect in your brain. Yes, in the back.
How long do you wear them? You say you wear them on both arms?
You do, yep. See, I've got one on my right, one on my
All
left.
day long?
So people are different, and it really depends on what the outcome you're looking for is. So if you're an individual maybe with autism, you will wear them all day because you have such high sensory processing, like SPD, that this actually stops your fight or flight from engaging all day. But for most people, they spot use them. So I had them on for about 10 minutes before I did my talk, and in fact I started yawning and I thought, oh my goodness, I must have hit the sleep setting. I need to turn them off so I can get myself jazzed up again for my talk. And then, like I said, I use them in the morning before, like while I'm drinking my coffee for the whole day. So it really, and if you're using them for sleep, there's a sleep timer, you just use them for 15, 20 minutes before sleep. So everyone's a little bit different, but generally people spot use them.
Given the response you to the fight or flight, have you done any research with the military?
So it's one of the areas that we're talking to them about. Military research takes quite a while. So we're working on some like DARPA grants, and the DoD has expressed quite a bit of interest in using them on the front line with soldiers.
Or the VA?
Same thing, we're chatting with the VA. Now we have a lot of research around PTSD, we have a lot of research around cortisol studies, we have ADHD research. So on our research page you can see, we actually have a scientific advisory board that oversees all of our research, and it's made up from individuals from like Johns Hopkins and Columbia and the American Psychological Association. But the technology has been so well received, actually Harvard called us about 2 weeks ago and asked us to present the findings at their Movement and Cognition Conference in July. So we're very excited about that. Thank you. Thanks. Any other questions I can answer? No? We're good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.